going, and it run for a good 5 years. And then Blinky Litzinger is one outstanding man to keep it going. And I thank everybody. Did I miss anybody?
Right behind you. Fred.
Fred's up. Yeah, Fred. Blinky has kept the rollerball story alive. Don and his brothers ran the track from 56, 57, 58, and 59. And they'd had enough after 59. And they leased the track to Blinky and Dick Pangborn, who ran it for 1960. Well, Blinky has kept that alive. He kept in contact with all the drivers that he could. He would organize a reunion every September. He'd have it at the Bus-Dye Men's Club, the last Sunday of September. He did it for a number of years, and he'd get the guys together, and it expanded. By the end, it wasn't just the rollerball drivers. Well, now there were drivers from State Line there, and drivers from other tracks, and it kept getting bigger. So Blinky is responsible for this film. He did all the research at the Prendergast Library to determine who had won all the races at rollerball over the years. And he went down to the library and he made copies of all the newspaper articles. Anything that had to do with rollerball, Blinky copied it off the microfiche at the library. Well, somewhere in about 2006, he took all these copies up to the Harmony Historical Society and he gave them to Pam Brown. I think most people in here know that Pam is the historian for the town of Harmony. Well, she starts looking through this, and she really didn't know much about rollerball. And she said, you know, we need to find out more about this track because it has to do with the history of our community. So she was telling Randy Sween, another guy that I think most of you know, about she wanted to do something to record the history of Rollerball Speedway for the archives for the town. Well, Randy is a friend of Greg Peterson and myself. Greg, as you're going to find out tonight, is the ultimate, world's best interviewer. So the idea was, well, let's get some of the guys who used to participate, and Greg would interview them, and we'd see where it took us. I was called in because I'm kind of recognized as an historian of racing in Chautauqua County, in particular at State Line, but I knew about a lot of the other tracks in the area as well, so I was asked to be a part of this as well. So we started in, I think it was in 2007, and we started interviewing people. And we started with Blinky. And we interviewed Don McNibb, and Red McNibb, and Skip Furlow, and Fred Eggleston, and Fred Clark, and Don Little, and Don James, and Johnny Whitehead, and Jim Scott, and Leroy James, and Bud Van Tassel, and Bud Yeager, and Ray Groves, and on it went. And after each interview, Greg and I would say to each other, these guys are unbelievable. With the stories that they're telling, we ought to make a movie. We're going, yeah, right, how do you make a movie? I mean, it cost a fortune. We could never make a movie. Well, Pam Brown went out, wrote some grants, got some money. We wrote a script. We contacted a company in Warren, Pennsylvania called All Sound Media. And we took our script to them. We took all the assets that everyone had given us during the interviews, photographs, films, souvenirs, whatever. We took all this stuff and went down to Warren and we made a film. We had the premiere of our film at the Robert Jackson Center in 2008, and we invited everybody who we could think of that had anything to do with rollerball. And we filled the place. and it was a great day. So without any further talk, Warren, if you'll get the film started, this is Rollable.
(1955), a year of anxiety and triumphs. A major medical hurdle was crossed with the discovery by Dr. Jonas Salk of the anti-polio vaccine.
The 1950s was an era of change in America. Post-World War II marked a time of unprecedented industrial growth. The changing economic landscape brought with it never-before-seen opportunities. Increasing prosperity allowed people to enjoy their automobiles as more than just a form of transportation. Cars became a source of pride and passion, a source of entertainment and competition. The automobile was king of the street and the track. Rollerball was a dirt track raceway located on Button Valley Road between the communities of Watts Flats and Panama in Chautauqua County of western New York State. Howard and Don McNitt were brothers and devoted grandsons to the widowed Mabel McNitt. The two brothers decided to build a racetrack, primarily from their desire to help their grandmother pay the property taxes on her land. In 1955, in an old potato field next to a thornapple orchard on the southeast corner of the McNitt property, construction of Rollerball Speedway began. Leon James and his son Don were contracted to clear the land and bulldoze the space that would become the track. Trees were cleared and the land was graded. The construction operation was completed by the spring of 1956. Rollerball Speedway was modeled after the former Satan's Bowl of Death, a speedway located just outside of Sugar Grove, Pennsylvania, not far from the present-day State Line Speedway. Rollerball was an oddly shaped quarter-mile track with a wide front stretch, an uphill run between turns 1 and 2, a narrow back straightaway, then downhill through turns 3 and 4. A small creek ran through the track at both ends. Most drivers recall an obstacle course more than a speedway. With the backstretch being at a higher elevation than the front, racers had to negotiate 2 slopes each lap. With its unusual configuration, it's no wonder old jalopy racers were so prone to rolling over. Because the odd shape of the track caused so many spills, the name Rollerball was very apropos. Spectators would watch in wonder and anticipation as 20 to 30 cars went barreling around the course. It wasn't uncommon for half of the contenders in a race to fail to finish, either from rolling over, flying off the course, or getting mired down in the creek bed. By running through the creek twice a lap, the drivers created a mud-slinging mess. With their windshields covered in mud, drivers had to stick their heads out of their side windows to find the way. When the checkered flag was flown, judges would often have to hose off the winner's car to reveal its number. After a few races and several dangerous mishaps, planks were laid over the creek between turns 3 and 4. The following year, 1957, planks were added over the water at the other end of the track to further improve safety and to increase the speed of the course. The McNitt brothers were in charge of track operations. Don and Howard, along with a committee of drivers, developed rules for racing at Rollerball. The rules were sparse, but 4-barrel carburetors, oversized radiators, and dirty driving weren't tolerated. The McNitts and their committee all pitched in to make sure the rules were followed at every race. Rollerball opened on May 30th, 1956. Racing occurred every Sunday at 2:30 in the afternoon from May till October, as long as it wasn't raining, and especially on holidays when a large crowd was a certainty. A typical race program at Rollerball consisted of 3 to 5 heat races, a semifinal race, 1 or 2 consolation races, and a feature race of 15 to 75 laps. Pit fees were $2. Cash prizes were awarded to the winners, $10 for a heat race win and $35 for a feature race victory. The track owners would sometimes lay down an additional incentive, $5 to any driver who can roll their car. Many drivers, with only $35 to $50 invested in their cars, could earn back their entire racing expenses in one afternoon. A track crew helped with the operation and maintenance of Rollerball. Don James graded the track weekly. The course was watered from a barrel lashed to a hay wagon pulled by Don McNitt's tractor. Teenager Skip Furlow would help with the water truck as payment for entering the track. Wrecker service was a tractor operated by Bud Yeager and Charlie Bacon, and flagman duties were performed by Big Leo Yeager. Carl Halpenny served as pit steward, and security was upheld by local sheriff Roger Seeley. Fire and ambulance services were provided by the Panama Fire Department. Insurance for the track and its participants was from Lloyd's of London for the fee of $75 to $100 per week. Rollerball was never denied an insurance claim. Spectators at the Rollerball would come from all over the region. Folks paid a fee of $1.25 to see their favorite racers each Sunday. Attendance would range from 75 to nearly 800 people. To watch the action, fans would park their cars on the top bank that rose above the front stretch. People would also fill the hillside next to the track or sit on logs in front of the thornapple orchard along the back straightaway. Families were often seen bringing picnic lunches from home, filled with Sunday afternoon feasts. If not picnicking, patrons could enjoy hot dogs and Pepsi-Cola from the concession stand operated by the McNitt family. The rules at Rollerball were designed for drivers who couldn't afford the more expensive late-model cars running at faster speedways. All cars at Rollerball were supposed to be stock, and no driver could race a car newer than a 1953 model. The standard race car varied from former family sedans to junkyard coupes to old rusty field cars. Racers used a wide variety of cars, such as Fords, Mercurys, Lincolns, Chevys, Dodges, Pontiacs, Hudsons, Packards, and even Studebakers in their search for glory. Many racers preferred the flathead Fords for their durability, but others liked the Chevys with their faster steering boxes. The heavy Packards and Pontiacs proved unreliable, most of them breaking their front ends after only a few weeks of racing. Standard vehicle prep for racing at Rollerball was really quite simple. Drivers would knock out side and rear windows, remove fenders, and fabricate grill guards to protect the car's radiator. Roll bars, safety belts, and helmets were mandatory to race. Some examples of roll bar ingenuity included old wagon wheels, hay rakes, welded black iron pipe, and even nailed 2x4s. Safety belts were often $3 parachute straps purchased at the local Army-Navy store, or maybe farmyard tow chains fastened to the car's frame. Although there were a few actual racing helmets passed around the pits, the most common protective headgear was simply an old football helmet. A 444 Ford rear end, a better distributor, a hotter coil, and good shocks were common upgrades. Other top wrenches tried to sneak in lighter flywheels, shaved heads, and even ether injection. In tires, Rollerball tires were fit-ems. If the tires fit the wheel, they used them. Teams would find these fit-ems at local junk and salvage yards, scavenging after dark for usable rubber. To extend the life of a punctured tire, pit crews would cut the bead off a worn-out tire and place it inside the blown one. Sometimes crews even used motorcycle tires. The favorite tires to deal with all the mud and abuse of Rollerball were abrasive winter recaps. After the cars were modified and a few spare parts were begged, borrowed, or stolen, only one obstacle remained: getting the cars to the track. Racers who lived in the immediate area simply drove their cars to the track. Some drivers chained their cars behind farm tractors. Others strapped a tow bar to the family sedan or work truck. Whether by hook or by crook, race teams did whatever they could to get to Rollerball on Sunday afternoon.
We did mechanics all our life, and drove tractors and whatever, but I had a friend, Richard Johnson, that drank a lot. And he came to my house at 4 o'clock in the morning and said, "We got to build a race car." And "Why do we need a race car?" he said. And he says, "Because I just made a $10 bet with Rodney Peters that we were going to beat him on Sunday." Well, I said, "We don't have a car." He said, "I know where there is one. It's $100. He said, "You got $50? I'll come up with $50. We'll have us a race car." They called it a racetrack, but really it was an obstacle course. It had a stream run through the center. The front straightaway, when you went into the first and second turns, there was a huge mud hole. And it kept, with the first few times we raced there, it was only 6 or 8 feet in diameter. By the time we got done racing there, it was 30, 40 feet in diameter. It was this huge water puddle. And cars always drowned it out, you know, because you're going through that water. And then you clumb a hill, and the rear straightaway was probably elevated 50, 60 feet higher than the front straightaway. Then 3 and 4, you broke down over a hill and crossed a bridge. And that's bridge is where I lost my front teeth.
Tell me about that. We might as well stop and tell me the story.
Well, it had to have been the second year I raced here, because I spent the winter building a flathead engine. I took it in our house and put it in our spare bedroom and put a couple sawhorses and a board in there. In
your bedroom?
Yeah, in the spare bedroom. Not in my bedroom, in the spare bedroom. And I worked all winter on that. I built me a race motor.
Yeah.
And I ground it and polished it, and I saved up, I think, $35 and bought a racing camshaft. And a friend of mine gave me a set of adjustable lifters, and that was a race engine, you know. Probably had a total of $100, $150 in it, and they had an extra lap race, and I don't know whether it was a 35 lap race, a 50 lap race, or whatever, but I know I started way, way back in it, and I got up to where I figured I was second or third or fourth, and I was in pretty good shape, and I'd been running the car really hard, and it was overheating, so I shifted it back into high gear when I was going across the back straightaway, which was the elevated straightaway. Started down the hill, I hit my brakes, and I didn't have any brakes. I tried to get it back in second gear, and I didn't get it in second gear, and I went off the end of the bridge and plowed into the bank, and of course, all I had for a seatbelt was an old hame strap off a horse harness, and I don't recall what I had for a helmet, but it wasn't much. And I hit my face on the steering wheel, knocked out my front teeth, and broke my nose, and of course it knocked me unconscious. And some guys come to the car to get me out, and about that time another car come down over the bank and landed right on the roof of the car I was in. And because I don't believe they stopped the race. Back then you just didn't stop the race.
No yellow flag, huh?
Because, no, there was no yellow flag. There was either a green flag or a red flag, you know. And when I come to in the ambulance, which was an old Pontiac station wagon, there was another guy in there sitting on the cot at my feet, and he was split from here to here, and his scalp, it fell down. He didn't have any ears because his scalp had fell down over his ear. And well, I thought there was little squirts of blood coming up out of his head, you know, from the arteries, you know, I suppose. And I told them people, that nurse, or the lady that was taking care of us, I said, don't worry about me. You better do something with him, you know.
Do you remember the day on coming out of the fourth turn and you rolled over there on the bank?
Yeah.
And there was no place for me to go when they hit you or go above you. And I went above you and the wheels run right along the door.
Yeah.
And here he is sticking his head up out of the car.
Let's look and see if he want to do it again. No, I remember that. That was a little thrill.
Yeah.
So what do you know about this guy, Fred Eggleston? He just told the story about you. You must have a story about him.
I don't really want to tell it.
Oh, don't tell him.
No, I don't. I know he was wild. I guess we all was.
But he won a few races. I mean, he
Oh,
must have
yeah.
been a marked man. You win 5 races there. He was a point leader. And I understand he punctured the tire of Dick Pangborn so he could win the...
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah. The old Ford would run, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what kind of car did you select, Fred? What was your...
It was an old Ford 6-cylinder, just like you read in there.
Right.
And that's the only one I ever run. All the time I run there,
Right.
run that same car.
Right.
I bought it for $25
Did you really?
for a guy I worked with. And it sat out behind his barn, and that was my race car.
Did you put much into it at all?
No.
What did you have to do to sort of comply with the McNitt's rules?
Well, they didn't have much rules, I guess.
Try to hide stuff he did.
Yeah. I can't really remember any real strict rules, can you?
No.
I mean, they tried to keep everything stocked. They didn't go to the racing stuff that they do like now, but
The only thing I ever done is put that flywheel in there.
yeah, a lot of them did
Got
that.
away with that.
Yeah, a lot of them did that.
Was it tough going those first couple of years?
Oh yeah, nobody really had any money, and they were the McNutts were getting all the help from a lot of the race guys that come up and help work on the track and stuff too. Myself, I done a lot of work on the track and just get my way paid in. I didn't have any money. I was just a kid, and I would get in for nothing and just help out on the track through the week and on the weekends. And when my first race was in '56, and back then I'd go around trying to bum a ride from anybody.
Yeah.
And I was 15, and
You're 15 years old.
Yeah.
You can't drive a car, but you're driving a race.
right.
Okay.
I had my folks sign a release for me. Of course, my folks were good friends of the McNutts too, and finally, I think a guy by the name of Chuck Bacon had an old Chevy sedan, and he was a nice old guy. And I come up and I says, "Hey, let me drive your car." And he says, "Go ahead, run the heat race." So I went out and run the heat race. And I don't even know if I finished it or what happened, but that was the first race I ever drove. And then I drove one other one, and Carl Halpenny's car. He had a 35 Ford or something. In a heat race, I didn't do anything in either race, but that was my first races. But that's the way I started out racing, was just trying to beg a ride from somebody. And being a kid, you didn't care anyways. You just didn't know any better.
I know that you had a terrible accident there, and could you describe what happened?
Yeah, it was. That was when I was 15, and I couldn't get a ride from anybody, and I was helping on the track, and they had we're watering the track. The track was real dusty that day, so they stopped in the middle of the race, and they had a big old boiler tank on the back of a hay wagon, and didn't really have it strapped on too good apparently, and and we just filled it up with water, and we was going around. I was on the back of the trailer turning the water off and on because we were trying to water the turns, and Don McNutt was driving the tractor, and he turned the wrong way on the turn against the bank, so all of a sudden the wagon started tipping, the tank started rolling. Your first thought was to try to hold the tank. Well, you don't hold 3 ton, Meanwhile, I got my foot caught under it, and I got back far enough so when I fell on the ground, the tank fell on top of me, but it crushed my left upper leg and cut the muscles off my right arm. That's when I was in a body cast for, well, I was in the hospital for 4 months for 16 weeks and traction. And I should have been dead if I didn't. We had a real good doctor back then by the name of Doc Childress. And he was really a miracle man with bones and stuff. And he saved my life and saved my leg. And I was in the hospital for 16 weeks in a traction. And then I was in a body cast for another 16 weeks. So about the last 2 months of the body cast time, I figured out how I could get around on crutches and get out of bed. So I was going to the races. I had trouble riding because you're just stiff all the way from, you know, so you couldn't get in the car. So I'd walk back and forth to Watts Flats on my crutches, and then I'd walk to the racetrack and back on my crutches.
Yeah, we got it skinned up a few times. We had 4 water pipes on each side and big H-beam in the back, so we could get hit and still not get hurt.
What was your number?
51.
51? Why that?
Well, I always come up with 51. I seen a race in Erie one time, and Tom Dill had it on his car, and I kind of did number stuck with me, and I went 51. And my brother Walt, he picked up 151.
Okay.
So if his car wasn't working real well, he'd use mine in the second heat, and I used mine in the first heat, and sometimes we'd use the same car. We had them both painted in white, so that's the way that worked. They looked just twin cars is what they were.
Right.
But we cheated a little. Some people cheated a lot.
Was there ever a time when you recall sort of an incident in the pits afterwards, or the drivers got a little heated?
How about Johnny Messenger?
Yeah.
He run for Hill Higher. He run up through the woods, and all the James boys was right on him. Beulah jumped in her car and picked him up on Hill Higher and didn't come back.
Do you remember Bill Arlen when he come down and raced, and he had 2x4s nailed together for roll bars in his car?
You had to know Bill.
Yeah.
He was one of a kind, Bill Arlen.
Describe him. You don't.
Not really.
I went to school with him, but hey, he wasn't dumb, but he was, let's say he was different.
Yeah, that's right. Different.
Was he there a lot in the races?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Not steady, but he came and went. Yeah.
Now, was this the same Bill Ireland in a demolition derby, Red, you were talking about?
Yeah, I told him when he drove his wife's Chrysler in it.
Yeah.
I told everybody out there, get him. Then he had to hide it in the woods. I don't think she ever seen it again. He probably told her somebody stole it. I don't know.
Now, among some of the specialty activities that occurred there, including your buddy Red rolling over the car, what else was going on there at the Roller Bowl to draw crowds?
Well, they had some little special entertainment now and then.
Women's race.
Yeah, they had the women's race. I think they even had the backup race, didn't they?
Me and Stan Stevens.
Yeah, and
I think that's the only race I ever beat him.
What's a backup race?
Put it in reverse and go.
Oh, really? So literally?
One.
Oh my God!
or back
Time
race.
around the track. You can tell, huh? That's the only race I ever beat him.
In the powder puff world, would that occur once a year, or?
Oh no, they run it quite often.
Third week.
When they could get enough ladies to make competition.
Was there one woman who was better than others?
I can't really remember. Can you?
James was.
Yeah, I guess
Leroy's
so.
wife.
Leroy's wife.
And old Beulah wasn't bad.
Yeah.
She could run too. Every time I hear that name, I laugh.
Then we've seen some pictures of the wall of fire. How did that work?
Well, it was you build a platform with a little ramp on it, and then there was 2 uprights, and you put about 1/2-inch boards on it. They weren't close together, but what there was gap 3-4 inches. And they poured gasoline on it, and the ramp was to keep the wall of fire from tipping over. That's why you run up, your wheels will hit it for you.
So the first time you were there, or you just took your car out on the racetrack?
Yeah.
What did you think when you went around that racetrack for the first time?
I thought it was a hell of a lot of fun. That's just what it was, too.
Yeah. If you had to say, Greg, I'm Bud Van Tassel, and I raced there for 3 years at Roller Bowl, and the funniest thing I ever saw was, what would you say?
When Red Magnet beat me for the flag going backwards.
Okay, tell us more.
I remember that very clearly. I don't know if it was a heat race or consolation or what it was, but he was in first spot, I was in second. Before he got the flag, he spun out, and I come through a big cloud of dust, and all of a sudden, there he was right there, and I hit him and drove him right past the flags. He got the victory. I'll never forget that.
One final question: when you look at it and reflect back, did you race? Was the race in your racing in your blood for the sport of it, or was there money driven?
It started out to be the sport, then it turned into the money, and now it's a money game.
Right.
He who spends the most goes fastest. Sometimes, most generally. Back then, it didn't matter. Number one, you didn't have the money to spend. And racing until the 70s, most of the parts come out of a junkyard. You build everything. And I never said I was a really good race car driver, but I was a pretty good mechanic.
Over 50 years ago, before Junior, Gordon, and Stewart, before Earnhardt, Waltrip, and Petty, even before Daytona was created out of a Florida swampland, stock car racing was flourishing in small-town America. One such place was Rollerball Speedway, where local farm boys competed in ragtag jalopies to the thrill of their families, friends, and neighbors. A track where no one ever got rich, but everyone had fun. A track that still holds a special place in the memories of those fans and drivers who called Rollerball Speedway home.
Who are you?
My name is Jim Chapman. My mom's Donna Chapman, which most of you know. I was raised right here on the Button Valley Road. Sunday mornings was a time when my aunt used to come and pick us up, take me, my brother, sometimes my sister, go up there every week. Some of the fun things we had is my years up there, McNitch would let some of us boys sell pop for them. And we'd go out with cases of pop, sell the whole case.
Right.
You would sell that full case, then you had to bring that case back full of empties.
Okay.
And when you got back to the concession stand, they give you 50 cents.
50 cents. What would you do with that 50 cents?
That was mine.
You didn't share with Mom?
No.
Nice, nice. Who ran the concession stand?
McNitz.
Okay.
I can remember times of my dad with Red McNitt and that having race cars in the driveway with him helping work on it.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite driver?
I'd probably have to say Blackburn.
Blackburn? What'd you think tonight?
Loved it. Brought back a lot of wonderful memories.
Yeah.
I got to congratulate the people who made it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, I thank you.
Apparently no child labor laws back in those days. Working a kid like a dog and gave him 50 cents. Newcomer Stan Walters of Randolph rumbled to a comfortable margin. Feature victory yesterday as the Jalopy Track Rollerball continued to crack down on irregularities among its stock car drivers. Walters had little difficulty in the 25-lapper in front of 350 spectators. The main battle centered around Walters, Speed Lathrop from Fredonia, and Dale Range from Panama. 2 disqualifications, one for dirty driving and the other for disregard of safety rules, enlivened the program. The wind-up event was a special powder puff race for women. It drew 10 entrants and was won by Beulah Eggleston of Panama. Clarine James started at the tail of the field, worked herself up to second, and ran out of gas.
Some weeks I didn't. We had to drag our car from Randolph to here. And so it had to be good enough to drag it from here, get it home again.
Now, coming from Randolph, that's a haul, so I bet you came just about as far as anybody.
That was, there was some Coverdales that lived in Randolph, too. It was in on that article there. That was racing too. And old 8-Ball used to race. It was Emery Man, it was an 8-Ball. From a straight 8 Buick. Him and I used to argue with the corner a little bit. He got on the outside and I was on the inside. He didn't hold the turn too good that day.
What drew you to Rollerball Speedway?
Well, I went to, there was a little track over in Leon, and I went over there, and at that time I think I was only 16, and I got over there and they wouldn't let me race because I didn't have a signature from my mom or dad.
Yeah. So you came to Rollerball because they didn't care?
Yeah, well, no, I think I had to have, I don't really remember whether I had to have a signature here or whether I waited a few years so I was old enough.
Okay, all right. So Randy just read an article where you won that race.
I won 3 places that day.
Really?
First on the feature race, and second I think was on the fast cars, and in the heat race. I never used to run too hard in the heat race, just enough to get me in, save my car for the real race, you know.
How did they set you up for the feature? Was that based on placement during the heat races?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember right, that's how they done it.
And how many years did you race up here at Rollerball?
I think I was only a couple years.
Yeah.
And then I got married, and once I got married, I didn't have money enough for racing and being married too.
Well, that's a problem all us great athletes ended when we got married. Yeah. Hands? What'd you think of the track? You saw some of it on movie here tonight.
Oh, we had a ball racing that track.
Yeah.
That was a fun track to race.
What do you remember about it distinctly? I mean, you were going in and off of rivers, and do you remember all that?
Yeah, I used to. I had straight 6 Hudson, and if I'd line them up right, I could pick one on one straightaway, one on the next. In the curves, you better forget trying to just make the curves.
So this was a little bit. Jim Scott talked about sort of a survival course, demolition derby. Did you feel that way?
It was kind of like that. Yeah.
The funniest thing that happened to me at Rollerball was, what would you say?
Well, I don't know how funny it was, but I think it was a mister that run the track there. He come up to me one day and we was cranking him up, getting ready to race, and he said, "You need a push?" And I cranking that old Hudson, and she'd go, you know. And he said, "What's the matter? You got that thing souped up?" And I said, "Oh no." I said, "That's just that's a junk battery. We had the best battery we could buy of that sucker. It had dirt all over it and stuff to make her not look too good, you know." I think the head was a little planed out, and she had little oversized pistons in it. That's what you call illegal, I think. But she would run.
Well, here we are in a church. I'm delighted that we're hearing this confession right now, Stan. Praise Jesus.
It was my buddy's car, so all I done was drove it, so it gives me excuse. No, we didn't do that to make it run on the track. He done that back when he had it on the road. He ended up buying a Cadillac and took the Hudson. We made a race car out of it.
Stan, how'd you get your car to the racetrack from Randolph?
I had a 49 Chrysler, and we had a tow bar on the back end of that, and a tow bar on the front end of the, and so you better drive good enough to keep her in shape enough to drag her home again, you know. Mm-hmm. So. What
was your number?
I think it was question mark. I know one track I went to, I can't remember this track or another one. They made me put 0 on it because they wouldn't accept question mark.
That's good.
We had a lot of fun.
Well, let's give Stan a big hand.
Donna Chapman.
Donna Chapman.
Mother of the pot carrier.
You can put
a proud one at that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that you can put on your resume. So, where did you live?
First house on Button Valley Road.
Okay. So as we take the right on the or left here in this case, Button Valley Road. And what was Sunday like at your house?
Well, at that time I was working, but my husband was home, and very much he was raised with the McNitts. And the guys used to come down there after the races quite often and leave their cars, you know, 1 or 2 of them, and then they'd take on them. We used to have an old garage out by the road, and they would string chains up through the trees and haul their motors up out of the cars. And just work on them out there in the yard. My husband loved everything about that.
They would work on them during the week? Mm-hmm. So the entire week you were sort of an auto body shop.
Yeah, kinda. But it was all good fun because these guys picked. My dad had a junkyard over the bus tie. Mm-hmm. He was more with the state line, but as you leave bus tie and go towards Stillwater, he had a big garage on the side, and they had a big junkyard out back.
What was his name?
George Griffin. Yeah. And it was George and Lee's garage there. And they used to allow the guys to go back there, and if they needed a part, you know, go back and strip it off one of the cars. So then they just bring it up to our house and put it on the car.
And then during so would this happen before the race, where they kind of reassemble the cars?
Oh, yeah.
And then take them, how would they get from your house down to the track?
Any way they could. No, tractors, trucks, pull them,
Yeah.
however they could get there.
Right.
Cars, other cars. But it just was, it was so much fun.
Did you get a sense it was a community event?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And the three brothers were just so great with that. I mean, they did such a good job on it.
This was Don and Howard and Red.
Mm-hmm.
These are great stories. Big hand, what do you say? And who am I speaking with?
My name is Pauline Furlow Edsel, and Skip Furlow is my brother.
Okay, now
So, listening to him talk about his accident brought back a lot of memories to me. One, of being woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning having to unfold my dad's carpenter rule and scratch his leg under the cast. But that, and what a challenge it was for my mom and dad to hold back a rambunctious 15-year-old in a body cast from his armpit to his ankles. And what he did, if you can picture this, is he slid himself off the bed far enough till he got top heavy and dropped his feet so he was straight up and down. And then he got those crutches, like he said, and we lived on the corner of Button Valley and the Blockville Watts Flats Road. And he came down here just to socialize because he was bored, and he'd swing like a pendulum on a clock. Now, if he had ever fallen, nobody was with him. He would do this by himself, and then they would bring him back home in the back end of a pickup truck. Slide him onto the porch and then stand him up so he could get back in the house. But I have to say for my brother that racing was in his blood from the time before he was 15. If it took him 3 tries to retire, it was definitely in his blood. But I was very proud of him, very proud that Skip Furlow is my brother.
Did you go to the racetrack?
Before he got hurt, yes. After he got hurt, absolutely not.
Right.
Because I was scared to death he'd get hurt. Other than our sister Donna came up from Louisiana and she talked me into going one time to the races, and it's a wonder I didn't go into heart failure.
Howie Paulson, rock star.
Yeah.
You raced here.
Yep.
What drew you? First of all, where are you from?
Jamestown.
Jamestown. How did you learn about rollerball? Was some of your buddies talk about it?
I was 57. Was drag racing at Wattsburg, and a friend of mine, Jim Polero, was working on my car, and he was drag racing a flathead Ford at Wattsburg, and he had a spare engine, and he didn't know what to do with this spare engine. We heard about rollerball, so he said, if you get a car, he said, I'll help you with this engine. So we bought a 48 Ford Coupe for 25 bucks, tore the fenders off, got Jim's engine and put in it, and that was in 1958. The movie you just showed, the one part of it, a friend of mine, Punk Fields, came with me to the races, and that was in June 8th, 58. And he took the film of me following me around the track at 4Z, was the number of my car.
Really? Sure.
And all of them, you see him following that one car in that race all the time. That's me.
No kidding.
Punk Fields. He had a good friend of mine. He had just bought a new camera and had to show it off. So we took it to the rollerball, and he filmed me during the race. So that's And I know the date exactly was the 8th of June, 58, because the next Sunday we come to the races. We got to racing, and my wife was pretty much along, pregnant. And during the race, I raced the heat, and I raced the semi, and she kept saying, "We got to go to the hospital, we got to go to the hospital." I said, "Well, wait till the feature's over." So, anyway, she couldn't wait, and I took the tow car and took her to the hospital, and my son was born on the 15th of June, Father's Day. That's why I knew that that thing was done on the 8th of June, 58. So my buddy, Jerry Yan, drove the feature, and he said, "You ain't having no more kids, because I ain't driving the feature no more."
And I bet you continued to drive up there, didn't you?
No, just 58.
Just 58?
Yeah. I know the first time I ever raced there, I was going down through the creek, and a stone lodged underneath my accelerator and the engine, and held the engine wide open. And I held on to it as long as I could, and pretty soon I went through the brush. That was the first time I raced at Rollerball.
But you came back.
Oh yeah. Well, you had a car. What are you going to do?
Would you make any money on this?
No, gosh. Nobody ever made any money racing that I know of.
Howie Paulson, let's give him a nice hand. This is great. Talking with her.
Ralph Gruber.
Ralph, what was your number?
99.
99. Did you see yourself?
No.
No? Okay, we're going to look again, Ralph. Now, where are you from, Ralph?
At that time I was from Youngsville.
Youngsville. So,
I worked with Don McNitt at the Lynn Service Center.
Oh, is that right?
And that's how I got into racing, was Don talked me into going and working on the track every night. So that's how we...
So you were there were you there with the James boys when they were kind of laying out the track?
No.
No. So you were there for the maintenance of it?
Afterwards, yeah.
Were you the guy who decided to finally put planks in on turn 4?
No, they should have been there though.
What did the drivers think when they kept going around the course? Just their reaction to Rollerball Speedway here.
I think everybody just went for fun, and they nobody could keep shocks on the car. I remember one time we put brand new shocks on my car, and Don, they didn't hold up even 1 week. Next week, Don says, "Here, we'll fix that. We'll chain that front right corner down." So he backed his dump truck up on the side of my car with a plank, and we chained it down tight. The next week, we went up, coming out of number 2 turn onto 3. It flipped over, and but we had a lot of fun. And I know every night that we worked on the track, we'd always stop down to Big Tree.
I know, for sarsaparilla and chicken wings. There we go. Who else was part of your crew, Ralph?
Well, Dave Olson, Chuck Bacon, of course Red and Howard. Don's dad was there a lot, working on the track.
What's the funniest thing that happened while either to you or you saw on the track there, Ralph?
I think the funniest thing ever happened was when I rolled over on that number 2 to 3 turn after we chained it down tight so it wouldn't bounce.
What did you think when you were kind of rolling over? This was not one of those paid like Red would do. This was a legitimate rollover.
Right. All I remember is you had to be strapped in, and I don't remember whether we had a seat belt or if we had a chain, but something. But anyway, after it rolled over, I couldn't get out. And the cars kept coming, banging into me. And
So just like we saw in the movie, there was no yellow flag.
there was no flags, just a finished flag.
So wow, that's got to be, I have to say, pretty scary when all of a sudden you just know that at any moment you could be spun around some more here.
Yeah, but you were in there pretty tight, and you had your footwell helmet on, so you. I remember somebody had to come over, and I think we had a chain, and it was hooked, and with a bolt, and we had to unbolt it in order to get out of the car.
So much for quick release.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all these memories. This is great. Thank you, Ralph.
Yep.
Don, I know we haven't talked since you've seen this movie, and Randy and I were just talking here a few minutes ago. I don't think we'd watched the movie since it was shown at the Jackson Center. What was your reaction tonight?
Well, brings back a lot of memories. Of course, you got to realize we were a lot younger then. And I don't remember going to the big tree. Maybe once.
The camera isn't picking this up, but there are a lot of people pointing fingers at you. I don't know what that is. So what you heard, what you saw there, did Randy do a pretty good job of accurately reflecting the
He
rollover?
done an excellent job. All of you fellows have worked hard. It's meant a lot to our family, and we'll never forget it. And now my brothers are gone. It makes you feel good, I guess, to watch it. And Blinky Litzinger is probably one of the guys that really kept it going. And I give a lot of credit to Blinky.
Absolutely.
And I'll never forget him.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget you guys for making the movie.
What did we miss? I mean, we talked about it, and we had 35, I don't know how long it is, 35, 40 minutes, but obviously couldn't get the whole story. What did we miss? What part of the puzzle that we should have added?
I don't think you missed much at all. Like I said, I got the idea from Saint's Bowl of Death. Then my grandfather passed away, and just my grandmother didn't have no income. And so I talked to her about it, and of course Grandma'd give down anything you wanted. And we started the racetrack, and we could give her $25 a week. It wasn't a lot of money, but back in them days it was, you know, paid the taxes and everything about that. And then the racetrack, I forgot one guy that raced there was Cleo Russ. And Howie, I forgot about Howie when I give their names, but I'm 80 years old now, and you forget. But the highlight of everything was at the Robert Jackson Center when that movie showed.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of, I don't know if you'd say publicity, or everybody wanted to know about it.
Yeah.
And I've got calls from Florida, New Mexico.
Now they were just late models principally, right? Late model driving with it. They, except for some big long races, they really, the early years, they didn't do any jalopy races, did they?
No, they raced like, I think Howie mentioned 100 lap.
Right.
And that was fun. I raced in a couple of them, and I did doing good till I got turned around. I had Frank Roman's car.
Really?
Yeah, I bought both of his, 93 and 105. And Frank was a master of building cars. And I don't know if John Seeley raced for him or not, but whoever he put in the car, like Ron, would take a championship. That's
Right.
how good he was.
Yeah.
And it just, they don't come like that no more.
You know, I'm not sure we asked when we did the interview before, Don, but did you race at Rollerball?
Yeah, well, match races between my brother and me and Red. And
So you and Red would race?
Oh, yeah.
Would Howie race?
Yeah.
So the three of you?
Red would spin me out if he got the chance.
So he was the Tom Dill of rollerball.
Yeah, but I beat him once.
Did you?
Yeah. He wouldn't stop for nothing, even when his car was on fire one time. He kept so, but we had a lot of nice people there, a lot of the crowd, and all the race drivers. You know, of course, back in them days, there wasn't many rules.
Obviously, I heard a few had broken.
I don't know about him. I forgot about him, but you know, we had 100 cars different Sundays, and when we started, there was Leon, New York, and I talked to that guy running that track, and he said it won't hurt me. Well, when we quit racing in '59, I think, there was 13 tracks in Chautauqua County. Wow. And the insurance then was $150, and you got $1.25, and I forget the pit was $2 maybe, or $2.50, and it took most of the money to pay the insurance, and of course we only paid, you know, minimum on races, and then trophies and stuff, but they understood. We had a good time. I think a lot of them had a better time after the race in the pits. Yeah. But I'd do it all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you did what you did, because we wouldn't be here tonight. What'd your grandma think about all this?
My grandmother was a very understanding woman. She lost her husband when he was, I think, 40 years old.
Right.
And she made our snowsuits for us kids when we was about like that. And I thought if I could help her out, and she really appreciated it, and very understanding, a real grandma.
Did she enjoy the races?
Oh yeah, she watched them. Yep, not all of them, but she had to go to Michigan to take care of her mother. Okay. And anything us kids wanted to do, she usually go along. You know.
So did your dad, was he part of the track?
Yeah, my dad and mother, and he kind of watched around there for a lot of booze. Nobody get drunk and drive, and I think a few of them got a buy, but
no names.
No names.
No.
And the only violence I could ever remember was this guy by the name of John. That's all I'll say. And he got after the James boys. And so after the race, they was going to go after him. Well, they never caught him, but he didn't come back. But very little violence. Everybody was, you know, got along good. And Leroy James, remember him?
Yep.
He told me many times, we always give the kids, well, we'd sell sometimes 2 Pepsi loads of 2 trucks of Pepsi. And we'd pay him, I don't know, a penny a bottle or something. And he said, I like that because my kids bought their shoes for school on that money.
Perfect.
Yep. And another thing, Fitz Siemens, that had the Siemens junkyard, when his dad, Cecil, raced there, we'd give the kids a ride in the car, not every Sunday, about every other Sunday, and give them a Pepsi and a hot dog. And later on in life, when I went to Siemens junkyard to buy stuff, it paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah, he never forgot it, and he told me. So, but that's about all I can remember.
Well, I got to ask a couple quick questions. One is, you put somebody on the hood of a car to go through that wall of fire. How did you who was it, and how did you convince the person to do it?
Well, I don't know if I was first or Leo Yeager was first. But I'll tell you, I had a Pontiac, and I got my head out there, but I never run through a wall of fire. We built it out of boards instead of them flimsy boards. And I got my head like this as a hood. I should have had it back here. I had it out here, and it broke the boards. And then I think Leo Yeager went through too.
What were you thinking?
I wasn't thinking. just a young guy and trying to make the crowd happy, and they loved it when cars wrecked, and they rolled the cars over. If they didn't do nothing in the race, then they come out and roll their car over for $5.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of fun. John Whitehead, I never forget him. He lived, and Emery Man, Ron Blackmare, all them guys raced there, you know, and they're all gentlemen.
Yeah.
And but I want to thank you and your whole crew for everything. I appreciate it.
Well, when it comes to gentlemen, you're at the top.
No.
Don McNitt, let's give him a big hand.